It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. We begin by looking back, just a little bit, to a month ago. That's when more than 200 Oakland County residents packed a Pontiac meeting room. They came to speak against a proposal to give the sheriff flock surveillance drones. Now, because of how some Oakland County commissioners handled the meeting, residents became even more upset. After the drones were approved, they organized to recall Chair Dave Woodward, the county's top legislator. Chair Woodward, I should say, has been in politics for over 20 years. He's advocated for things like public transit and clean energy. He's also been in some hot water due to accusations of using his business ties to support his political ends. So we invited the chair on to reflect on his time in office and to respond to the attempts to recall him. Commissioner Woodward joins me now. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Robyn, for having me.
So you are under the microscope right now, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to know, what got you into public office? Why do you care about being a public servant?
Great question. Really my involvement in politics started in college here at Wayne State University. The ability for people to come together, to identify problems, to solve them has been a driving purpose of me, and I've made it part of my adult career. And we've made incredible strides. I served in the state legislature after graduating. I've been on the county board, as you mentioned, for the last 20 years. And we've been able to put things into action. I take the values that we care about, and I'm a proud progressive Democrat, to take those values and put them into action to improve people's lives, raising wages, lowering costs for working families, protecting the most vulnerable, and making certain that we have a health and strong public safety to keep our community safe. And so we've been able to do that in a responsible way, win elections, enact policy, and do so in a fiscally responsible way to make sure that our lives are better.
Thank you for answering that. I think that this is a very tough job that you do, and you serve the public, and so you also have to be open to public scrutiny. But we must acknowledge that it is a lot of challenging decisions that you're making all the time. And so we have to look at some of those decisions, though, because, again, you are accountable to the public. I do want to go back to that April 8th meeting that I mentioned. So, again, more than 200 of your constituents showed up to speak about the flock drone contract. We're going to get into what some of their concerns are in a moment. But I want to go back to just before the discussion, when you held a vote to move public comment to the end of the meeting, which made residents really upset. It was after the vote on the drones. Walk our listeners through what was going through your mind. Why was that the right call?
So we're going to talk about the 911 drone proposal in general, I imagine, in a couple of minutes. But let me talk about a process. Like the idea was a recommendation from the sheriff's office that goes through a legislative process. And I understand that the public in general might not understand all the mechanics of the legislative process. So let me share with your listeners. We had a committee process. We had a committee meeting that discussed the item weeks earlier. Public comment was accepted there. We had a Democratic caucus meeting that was held just prior to the board meeting. Public comment was welcome and entertained there. Over those weeks, there's been a number of conversations that commissioners had with residents, emails, phone calls, conversations, getting the information they need to make an appropriate conversation. And prior to the board meeting, I made it public, and it's part of the public record, that I recommended to the full board that all public comment should be moved to the top of the meeting before we proceed to the business. I'm part of a 19-member board, and the decisions of the board and how the board is run is a decision of the majority. I recommend moving public comment to the top of the meeting, and the board voted to move public comment to the end of the meeting. I wish that wasn't the case. I don't think it was necessarily helpful to the conversation. It's become a distraction of the substance of the issue. All members who did come to speak and address the board on their opinions on the program were afforded the opportunity to speak. And the measure that we're talking about passed overwhelmingly 13-4. and no commissioner has signaled that any information since the meeting has resulted in changing people's minds.
You were one of the people, though, that voted to move the public comment, no?
I'm the chair of the board, so I have to call the vote.
Right.
There was a motion made, a second, and the majority of the board voted in that way. It was known that my preference was to have the meeting at the top of the meeting, have the public comment at the top of the meeting. That's part of the public record.
You understand why people are looking directly at you, though. You are the chair of this board.
I am the chair, and the board operates by majority. So there's like 19 members. A majority went in a different direction that was, frankly, opposite of what I had recommended.
And how did you vote?
I didn't support. I supported having public comment at the top of the meeting.
This puts you in a very difficult position.
I'm the chair of the governing body of Oakland County, and so I must conduct the meeting as the majority dictates the terms to be done. I wish it was different. Again, it is part of the public record of my position to advocate for a public meeting to be at the top of the meeting, and the majority of the board went in a different direction.
I want to stay on what's important to keep in the public record. I'm thinking about when Commissioner Charlie Cavell asked for a roll call vote, which would have put every commissioner on the record by name. You denied it and moved on. Robert's Rules of Order generally allow any member to request a roll call. Why did you say no?
We proceeded to approve an agenda, which is the process that we do at the top of every meeting, and I believe that might have been a roll call vote that was approved. So the agenda, and when it finally was done, was approved. To conduct the meeting, which is the business meeting, to process all the county business that was before us.
Okay. And so, but it is or it is not in the part of the public record?
There's a public record of the agenda being passed. I'd have to go back to see if that was a record roll call vote. Sometimes we do it by voice vote. Sometimes we do it by record roll call.
You understand why this would add to people's anger?
I certainly understand that people had an idea to speak at the first public comment versus the second public comment. I think it is important to also recognize is the public comment opportunities that were afforded beforehand. And so when people say there was no opportunity for public comment, that's just not true. To say that there was no opportunity to engage their commissioners before the vote, that's not true. To say that the information and the dialogue and the conversation, that this was rushed and that there was an intent to ignore additional feedback, that's false as well. And I think when you actually go watch the meeting and all the comments that when the public comment was allowed and hours of public comment was afforded, I think the conclusion is that the position that individual commissioners made on the issue, it passed overwhelmingly 13-4, and I don't think that there was any information shared that changed people's minds. Had it changed people's minds, that commissioners, there's an ability to reconsider the vote.
You talked about engaging with residents via email, via phone calls ahead of this vote.
And public meetings.
What were you hearing? What were you hearing in those emails and phone calls? I mean, we do have to, again, look at the fact that when residents are coming out in opposition of something, one of the most beautiful examples of the democratic process is witnessing a public meeting where local leaders really hear what their residents are saying and they change course because of what their residents say and what concerns they have.
Great question. So I think it's important for your viewers to understand that as a county, we're 1.3 million people. Our governing body is made up of 19 members representing about the same number of people spread out across the county. Good commissioners, and I imagine I serve with the board, even if I disagree with their politics, that they're involved in the community, they're regularly engaging their community, they make themselves accessible. We have staff support to help increase and make them more accessible, that they're constantly getting a feedback loop in terms of what does their community care about, what is important to them, and commissioners are able to make informed decisions on a host of all the issues that come before us. So specifically to this issue, the 911 drone program is something that's been in place in Oakland County for more than 4 years. It's hugely successful. in terms of search and rescue and responding to emergencies and giving first responders the tools that they need to better respond to situations. Our drones were used most recently in the terrible attack on Temple, Israel, a couple months ago.
And there's a public-facing dashboard, I realize, and the data is destroyed after a set period. So I understand that this has been extremely successful. I think what a lot of people have been concerned about, though, is the company Flock itself. There's substantial reporting by 404 Media, by the University of Washington Center for Human Rights, and others that local police around the country have used Flock cameras to run thousands of immigration-related searches on behalf of ICE, even though Flock's own policy says they shouldn't. And the ACLU of Michigan urged your board to reject the contract. Why is Flock the right partner for Oakland County?
So the question before us right now is for the sheriff office who's running a 911 drone program on a platform is going to become obsolete. And so is looking at whatever options are out there. And this opportunity presented itself at no cost to taxpayers to try it out to see does it achieve the objectives of what is necessary to help support first responders, which, for the record, my community, the district that elected me, and I would imagine most of the 1.3 million people across Oakland County, 100% support faster response to emergencies and getting first responders the tools they need to better respond to those emergencies. And so fundamentally, I believe that currently exists. As it relates to the privacy concerns, as a card-carrying member of the ACLU, I hold privacy issues at a very high level. And so when you go through and look at what is the contractual language, who owns the data, who controls the data, what's the ongoing oversight that the drone policy to protect privacy that Oakland County has currently is maintained. It is the use of this technology is audited on a regular basis to ensure that those privacy concerns are being addressed, asking the questions, getting the receipts and the proof of how it's been operating. And we've got years of experience in which there has been no problems and no concerns. And so when there are those who are actively organizing or spreading misinformation, for instance, people call this a mass surveillance program. It is not a mass surveillance program. It is a 911 drone program that responds to emergencies, to a 911 call, if it's an appropriate tool to be able to respond to it. And so there was a lot of misinformation being spread, and every attempt to try to correct that information was made. And so when you asked me, like, what was I hearing? I was hearing that they want to make certain that the public and everyone that I had conversations with, we want to make sure that our law enforcement have the tools to respond to emergencies. We want to make sure that our privacy concerns are addressed. We want to make sure that there is appropriate tracking, oversight. You referenced the public-facing dashboard that keeps a log of all the flight patterns that the public can see, like when a drone is used for a 911 response.
If I may, Commissioner Woodward, I think it is less about what you're talking about. Of course, people want fast response times. They want to feel as though they can rely on law enforcement. They want to feel safe.
Absolutely.
But Flock is a company that a lot of people are increasingly looking at as a bad actor. Did you have other options to consider? I mean, this seems to, Flock itself and a contract with Flock seems to be a really big pain point for a lot of people. Why Flock?
Well, I would say that we rely on the expertise of the sheriff's office that is on a regular basis evaluating all technology and all technology platforms. And so I would say that Flock is not the only one in the space, that there are others. And in fact, we added provisions to the authorization to do this trial that if we were going to engage in a long-term relationship with any vendor, that it will go through a public RFP process, et cetera. To use this platform to provide the 911 drone support is limited to this at no cost to taxpayers to test to see if it's something that meets the needs of the sheriff's office. There are other people in that space. It makes a lot of sense. Most of the communities around Oakland County use products with Flock and have used the technology in a way that it's supposed to be in line with the contract, protecting the privacy of individuals to prevent high-speed chases, to catch bad guys, to prevent crime in the first place, and all those types of things. And so most of the 62 local communities in Oakland County, most actually have partnered with this vendor and still do today.
We would be remiss to not acknowledge that there is a problem with accountability when it comes to law enforcement, and you are in a very important position to hold law enforcement accountable. I'm wondering, should you rely so heavily on the expertise of the sheriff's office? Should you rely maybe more heavily on other perspectives when it comes to public safety?
I take in the feedback from everybody. I turn to local law enforcement, give me the information, give me the proof, give me the ability to have the oversight. I want to see the policies. I want to have assurance that we're auditing to make sure that policies are being held. We have the power of the purse from the county board and working with the executive to hold law enforcement agencies accountable. Civil rights is something we are greatly concerned about when we look at the trampling of civil rights coming out of the White House and all the things like this. Leaning on experts to figure out what are the best practices to do this. And you mentioned the ACLU earlier. The ACLU has given actually very good guidelines and principles and practices in how, if a drone program was going to be used, what should be incorporated. A public-facing dashboard, auditing of those provisions, that the law enforcement's not the only one has access to this data, that there is some oversight in the component, and we have a committee process that allows for all of that, and that dialogue is happening on an ongoing basis. So it's not just trust, it's a trust and verify, and then draw on best practices. And I think when you ask residents, do we have a trustworthy sheriff's office in Oakland County? We do. Do we have trustworthy local law enforcement departments across Oakland County? We do. And we have a burden of responsibility to verify that the policies in place to protect privacy, to protect the public, to ensure that we're following the law is being evaluated on a regular basis. And I'm confident we are doing that.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Oakland County Commission Chair Dave Woodward. We've been talking about what he makes of the recent efforts to recall him and create a special election in his district in November. Chair Woodward, it is not just about flock. There is a broader ethics picture that some people have pointed to. Late last year, you got into some hot water, we will say, because you own a political consulting company and consult for the gas station Sheetz. You've been accused of helping people get elected in Royal Oak and then advocating for a Sheetz contract in that city. Even after a lot of pushback from residents, some say you shouldn't be conflating your business interests and political ones like this. What do you make of that claim?
Well, first and foremost, I've been working to elect Democrats my entire adult life. I'm the former chair of the Oakland County Democratic Party, and probably no one has worked harder to elect Democrats at the local and county and state level than me. I do that. I think everyone's ability to get in that space and do that, and we've been very successful. And we do it for a reason. We do it for a reason to be able to elect people that share our values so that they can implement policies that align with those values. And we've done that. If without a Democratic majority in Oakland County, we wouldn't have countywide transit. We wouldn't have programs that are eliminating medical debt and reducing student debt for thousands and thousands of people. We wouldn't have the Downtown Economic Development Project in Pontiac. We elect Democrats to accomplish these objectives. Helping elect someone to office, my client in that case is the candidate committees, to do that is not a conflict with the work that I do in county government. You brought up Sheetz. Sheetz doesn't have business before the county. There is no conflict as it relates to that.
There is no question that you have had a lot of successes on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. And there is no question that you have been a supportive Democrat and that you have lifted up other Democrats as you have rose in your position. The question, though, is whether you used your political relationships to deliver a win to a paying client.
Absolutely not.
Two members of your own caucus Commissioners Nelson and Cavell left the Democratic caucus last summer over transparency concerns. They've proposed an ethics board. This is related to everything we're talking about: financial disclosure rules and a whistleblower policy. Those proposals have stalled. You've sponsored your own ethics resolution, I realize. That's stalled too. Why has nothing come to pass?
Well, I think there's three things that I mentioned that. First, you mentioned two members that quit the Democratic caucus. They quit the Democratic caucus without any conversation with not just me, without any other conversation with members of the Democratic caucus for pure political theater. Secondly, I worked with Executive Coulter in developing a policy that was aligned in priorities that he wanted to accomplish, that I supported. We introduced that proposal. And upon review with our county lawyers, there's limitations that we can do given current state law and separation of powers in the state constitution. And so we did take action to start advocating for action at the state level to give us the tools to be able to make it a requirement so that county officials, not just in Oakland County, but the 600 plus county commissioners around the state, follow the same rules that a state legislator would have to do. When it comes to whistleblowing, we have a whistleblowing policy that, and frankly, that we've had whistleblowers and we've taken action accordingly. There's a state whistleblower policy that applies to county efforts. And so when those two who quit the Democratic caucus and betrayed the Democratic voters in their respective districts say that there's nothing's been done, that's just fundamentally not true. We have taken action. The board has taken action, has actually called on the legislature to give us the tools so that we can enforce more financial disclosure as necessary.
Could you be more transparent with your clients that you're working with your consulting firm?
There are 600 some county commissioners across Michigan. I think it's clear that more people know about my stuff than any other county commissioner in Michigan.
That's fair, but you could be an example, no?
I would argue I am an example. I have never hid or disclosed or prevented discussion about what I do outside my work. I think it's important your listeners also understand that the commission's a part-time job. Every commissioner, unless retired, has other work. And I have been forthcoming when asked. I have answered to press inquiries and others about the work that I do. And all the work I do, as a county commissioner, as any elected official, you swear to take an oath to uphold the state constitution, the laws of Michigan, and I go a step further in all the policies and rules as it relates to county government. And I have done that. And whenever there was a question, sought legal counsel, county lawyers to say, what is the appropriate protocol to address this situation? Other commissioners, when there's been questions, have reached out. We've sought legal counsel to make sure that we're in full compliance of our code of conduct, all the state laws and regulations of the state of Michigan.
Some people would say that if you're in politics, you shouldn't have side gigs. It sounds like what you're saying is that being a commissioner doesn't pay the bills enough, and it forces you and many of your colleagues to do other work and juggle many other balls and wear different hats. But it sounds like it also can be quite easy for these two worlds to collide in ways that are not favorable, that are going to make people question your motives.
I guess your first question, does the county commission doesn't pay the bills? It's a part-time role. I mean, it might be different in some different areas, but county commissioners overall around the state, they're part-time jobs in addition to other work, and it's been that way for me for the last 20 years. And like I said, every commissioner has a job outside, unless they're retired, of doing that. What you do, you put up guardrails. The conflict of interest law of the state of Michigan needs to be fiercely fouled. We have a code of conduct policy in the county. If there is a question, then the appropriate action is to seek appropriate county lawyer guidance on how to address that. And questions do come up from time to time. Individuals in employment or a decision, or I know this person, can I vote on this measure, and those types of things. And that's what our county lawyers are there to give the appropriate guidance to answer those questions. I think it's perfectly appropriate for when people have questions about motives that those questions are asked and then they are answered. And I have answered all of those questions. Now, what I will say, the people who continue to drill, there are a lot of people that want to take a bite out of me.
Why?
I've had Republicans who have been fighting me for my entire political career that do not want to continue this progress that Democrats have made in Oakland County, love any type of distraction. Democrats, they have a political axe to grind because they are not getting the outcomes and the results that they want with their own peers or whatever, so be it, and other detractors that exist out there. And so they'll seize any effort to kind of spin the truth. My voters know completely. They see this charade of a recall for what it is. And the people who are behind it, who have a political axe to grind, Republicans that are gleeful, people.
The vice chair, if I may, of the Troy Democratic Club is leading the effort, the recall effort, no?
She's leading it with someone who advocates political violence, with someone who has been wielding a political axe for a lot of things. Good Democrats know what's at stake this year. Democrats need to be focused on winning Michigan. Oakland County is center to everything. Winning back the state house, keeping and growing the state Senate, expanding our reach in the U.S. Congress to put a check on this president, holding the U.S. Senate. Oakland County is about that.
Chair Commissioner, let's set aside the recall for a moment. The April 8th meeting happened.
Correct.
Hundreds of your constituents showed up, and many say they felt unheard. 9,000 of them might sign a petition over the next 2 months. Whatever happens with the recall, do you think the way you govern in Oakland County needs to change at all?
We take very serious the way that we create opportunities for the public at large to engage in our meetings. I would argue that there's no other county that puts our documents and our records online easier for the public to consume. We record all of our we live stream and record all our standing committee meetings and board meetings, and we invest a lot in that technology so it's easy for people who don't have the luxury to come to a meeting to be able to observe and see what's happening. When we make commissioners are accessible to the entire public as a whole. So when we talk about having an ability for people to engage with us, we believe in it, we practice it, and by and large, I would say that the overwhelming majority of individuals think that. Now, when you have some organized efforts that have ulterior political motives, and let's call a spade, and the number of individuals that they're not, it wasn't their first meeting. They've been coming on a variety of issues and have been coordinating and scheming and plotting with others.
Or someone might say this is what democracy looks like. No?
Absolutely. I think people should be able to communicate and make their voices heard. Democracy is also about electing people. We have 19 commissioners that have been elected overwhelmingly by their respective districts. And we elect individuals to process the thousands of issues that come before a county on a regular basis. There's lots of opportunities for the public to engage. And it's not at the board meeting where it starts. That's where the conclusion of the business is. It starts at the idea inception and then the committee process and the engagement in additional information gathering to help inform a decision that our elected bodies have to do. I understand that there are people who came to the last meeting and they didn't completely understand the process. And I would say that we have a duty and a responsibility to educate individuals in how to be more civic engaged. What's the best way to actually get information? I would say for those who were there first time, they didn't even know who their county commission was. They were told on TikTok to come to a meeting about something that really wasn't the something that they were told to come to the meeting about. But
then they witnessed the process and they felt that they had been shut out of the process.
I talked to a number of people at that meeting that while they were there, they understood that there were other things that were going on at the same time. And so I think there's a recognition of that. When you're in public office, you have to be open to receiving all the feedback, even if it's harsh and rude and vile at sometimes. I get accused If I smile, I'm seeming condescending. If I am stoic, I'm not showing empathy. Like I can't
No
win.
good deed goes
Right.
unpunished in this industry,
But
business.
we work very hard to make certain that everyone is afforded the opportunity, just like anybody else, to address the public body as a whole. And myself, I make myself available to meet with individuals. Now, I'm the chair of a board that oversees a board that of 19 members, 1.3 million people. I'm elected from about 65,000 people. And so I hold my duty and responsibility to look out and deliver for the best for Oakland County, looking out for the most vulnerable, protecting our public health and public safety from a county lens. But obviously, that's in line with the people that have elected me over the years. And the way that I'm conducted myself and held myself, and the choices and the decisions I make are in line with why people have voted for me and expect me to continue to do the work that I've been doing.
Anyone who's listening right now in the last, 10 seconds that we have here who wants to speak with you, who wants to be in contact with you, how should they do that?
I am not hard to find. Show my cell phone number, but it's if you contact my office, you can contact me by phone to the county office, 248-858-0100. Email me directly, woodward@oakgov.com. I have, and a number of people have, it's been posted all over social media, and I welcome the feedback, but I also welcome the feedback to make sure that you're reaching out to your local county commissioners as well.
So you're ready to listen. Dave Woodward is the chair of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. The I Am Oakland County campaign has until late June to collect signatures for a recall election. If they succeed, the recall would be on the November ballot. Commissioner, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Robyn.
It's the Metro on WDET. One note about this conversation, we cannot confirm Chair Woodward's claims that a member of the I Am Oakland County campaign has pushed for political violence, but we will be digging into that. Coming up, over the past 5 years, social workers have become a much bigger part of police departments. We'll find out how that's changed the mission to serve and protect. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.